Mr. Dosen,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yeah.
Mrs. Mack,
Yes.
Mrs. Whitman,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes. Okay. Item 4, President's announcements. I want to begin today's meeting with a mea culpa and with a strong statement about my personal commitment to board procedures, Ohio law, and to transparency. Out of an abundance of caution and with a close eye on the number of positive COVID cases in middle school and the growing number of students required to stay home from school, through me, a majority of the board, Ms. Kramer, Ms. Whitman, and I recommended that Superintendent Magyar issue a mask mandate for the middle school, where we've seen more positive COVID-19 cases than any school in our system, other than Highland Drive Elementary. Ms. Mack and Mr. Dosen were not in favor of the middle school mask recommendation, nor did either Ms. Mack or Mr. Dosen participate in the process that led us to our recommendation. I stand by that recommendation. I looked at the numbers, and as a father and a grandfather, I wanted the district to move quickly to keep these numbers from growing and keep kids and staff in school. I feel passionately about it. Superintendent Magyar issued a middle school mask mandate and informed the school community, which she had the authority to do, and which became effective September 15th until further notice. Board policy now permits the superintendent, as well as the board, to make timely decisions about facial coverings for some or all students in the district. But procedurally, in my zeal, I went about it in the wrong way by not having a more transparent process to communicate my concerns and those of Ms. Kramer and Ms. Whitman to our fellow board members, Ms. Magyar, and to the community. And I want to correct that tonight. To that end, tonight the board will discuss and deliberate the issue of middle school masks and also consider a resolution to affirm the September 15th mask decision to increase safety measures at the middle school in order to mitigate against the continued spread of COVID-19. We will also consider a resolution to require masks at the middle school moving forward from today. I am absolutely committed to making this gaffe right. It is no secret that there are many things this board does not agree on, and healthy, objective debate is the good thing. But we all agree that we must be transparent to serve this district and this community to the best of our ability. I want to back up words with action. Ms. Kramer, Ms. Whitman, and I are going to take additional training on Ohio's Open Meetings Act so that we can keep pace with the changing landscape of Ohio's public schools and to remind ourselves of our ongoing obligation to our community to always act in an open and transparent manner, consistent with Ohio's sunshine laws. I respect and value the interests of our community. I know we all do. So let's move forward together in the best interest of the district, and more specifically, in the interest of keeping our middle school kids and staff safely in class. Thank you, and let's move on with tonight's agenda. I now ask that Ms. Magyar update us on our COVID-19 dashboard and other relevant data points so that we can move into an informed deliberation and discussion on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Our dashboard, we are required by law to update our dashboard once every week. We in our district are updated on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So if you look at our dashboard today, our numbers are updated as of this afternoon. We updated about 2:30 in the afternoon on those Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So if there's something that comes in tomorrow, it will not be reflected on our dashboard until on Friday. So this week we had 4 additional cases so far through today at the middle school, which also required kids to quarantine There has been a change in the flow chart that is issued by ODH. Before, as it was, if you had a mask on, regardless of distance, you were not required to be excluded. They have since made a change. We have posted the new flow chart on our website, which now says that if you are in 0 to 3 feet, even if you were wearing a mask, you're going to be required to be excluded. So there were some families who got notified at the middle school that were, unaware of that. We quickly reposted the flow chart. We've updated the letter that we've now sent out to families to be able to do so. That's a little bit problematic just because we do have situations that, especially when kids are eating lunch, that they're in that 0 to 3 feet. We are working with our middle school specifically to find different areas of the buildings that they can eat in so that we can ensure that ththose kids, when they're not wearing masks, when they're having lunch, can be that 3 feet apart. But that is definitely a change. We have an email getting ready to go out to our community tomorrow to let them know of this change and refer them back to our website so that they can review that information for themselves.
Would you mind posting the updated flow chart?
Yes, I can. Well, I don't know, I can physically do that, but I will have Craig or have it done, so yes, I can do that.
Please do.
Okay. We have our pre-K to 5 building project update. It's a report there. You can read it. There's some pictures on that report that you can see the great progress our building is making. We're very excited about it as it's all enclosed now and we're starting some of the inside features of the building. So it's very exciting to go over and see classrooms taking shape and spaces being taking place in the building. So if you're interested in that, please look at it and read it. And of course, here in Brexville and Broadview Heights, we have kids doing wonderful things. So we wanted to make sure that we recognize those students. So we have students that were selected for the Northeast Region Orchestra and All-State Band. The Northeast Region Orchestra members are Josh Choi, David Bobby Johnston on string bass, and Leah Ragov on violin. And in OMEA All-State Band, we have Aiden Casa, a 12th grader on euphonium. I don't even know what one of those look like, but that's great. And David Johnson was also nominated for the All-State Band on his string bass. We're very proud of our students. We had 2 national merit finalists that need to get recognized. Their qualifying score in the 2020 PSAT the qualifying exam. Roughly 16,000 students, or the top 1% of students, nationally qualify for the national merit semifinalists. And Anna Matthew and Anna Charmonte for qualifying. So congratulations to them. And we also have commended scholars. They are in the top 50,000 students who entered on the PSAT, the qualifying exam, in their junior year. So congratulations to Zachary Campbell, Alyssa Frater, Catherine Hansen, Mary M, Gabrielle Loveland, Rohan Ragadaru, Gavin Rosick, Hudson Schneider, Katrina Sumarley, and Haley Smith. So congratulations to those students. And finally, we have a junior, Leah Stasek, who qualified as a top 10 finalist in the 2021 Shining Star Cleveland Singing Competition. She was competing with over 200 area school performers, so we're very proud of her as well.
Okay, item 6, community communications, hearing from the public. Persons wishing to address the Board of Education may do so at this point. No formal action will be taken on subjects that are not included on this agenda.
Excuse me, if you talk up, we can hear.
Persons wishing, is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Persons wishing to address the Board of Education only Board of Education may do so at this point. No formal action will be taken on subjects that are not included on this agenda until the board has had an opportunity to study them. Comments regarding personnel must be submitted in writing through the office of the superintendent. in order for the board to complete the planned agenda in an effective and efficient manner, and to provide sufficient opportunities for members of the public to be heard. Hearing of the public shall be limited to a maximum of 30 minutes, during which each speaker shall be limited to a maximum of 2 minutes.
Mr. Peterson, there are 5 that have submitted. If anybody else does want to speak to the public, there is a form up in the front. You can please fill it out and return it back to me. Otherwise, we will start with Lisa Galen, please.
My name is Lisa Galick. I live at 3440 Mark Drive in Broadview Heights. Tonight marks the 5th time I have addressed the Board of Education regarding masks in our schools. This time, I'd like to thank the district for requiring masks in all 3 elementary buildings and the middle school. As you know, the vast majority of students in these buildings are not yet eligible for the coronavirus vaccination, which means they are more likely to become infected with and spread COVID-19. Therefore, the mask mandate at the elementary and middle school level offers protection for families who do not yet have a choice when it comes to vaccination. Our community should know that mask mandates in these buildings are making a difference. The week after the elementary mask mandate went into effect, our district saw a 24% reduction in reported COVID-19 cases, from 21 cases down to 16. And the week after the middle school mask mandate went into effect, the total reported number of cases decreased by 63% district-wide, from 16 cases down to just 6 cases. And of course, mask mandates in these buildings are helping our children stay in school and stay learning. On Monday, I received a call informing me my 5th grader was a close contact. Because everyone is now masking in middle school, there was no need to determine if she was masked or not to see whether or not she would need to quarantine. She could continue her education with limited disruption. As I have done before, I will end by urging this district to require universal masking in all buildings. Last week, half the reported cases in the district were among high school students. According to state news reports, only 37.5% of 12 to 18-year-olds in Ohio are vaccinated. Every Rexall Broadview Heights student deserves to attend school in a safe and healthy environment. Thank you for your time.
Next up is Gordon Gibb.
My name is Gordon Gibb. I live on Island Drive in Broadview Heights. And this is probably, I think, the 4th time I've been here on saying something that this is here on. I want to start by saying that I'm glad to see that the situation around how the mandate was implemented is being addressed and that there's some accountability for what took place. I think regardless of where you fall on the decision that was made, I think it's fair to say that we all deserve transparency around how those decisions were made, and I appreciate the proactive steps taken to address that and take responsibility for that. I'm also glad to see that we'll be having a conversation about the middle school mask mandate and potentially reaffirming that going forward. As Lisa mentioned, I think we have clear evidence that it has had an impact on our caseloads, both in the elementary and the middle schools. And I urge us to consider, as Lisa said, mandatory mask mandates across the board until we get to a place where caseloads have dropped significantly. As close as we are to children ages 5 and up being eligible for the vaccines, I think it's especially important to see this through to the finish line. And I hope that once we get to a place where all students are eligible to be vaccinated, we consider how we go about verifying vaccination and understanding the vaccination rate among our students before we start putting mask mandates and potentially putting students in it. And I hope that we find a way to do this in a way that is comfortable for everyone. I know that nobody likes us having to wear masks. I know that it's not ideal for the educational process, but given the impacts that we've seen on the case numbers, even in the few weeks since the mandates were put in place, I hope that we are all wise enough to see the impact that they have. Thank you.
Next up is Kathy Holt.
Good evening. First off, I'm saying sorry, I have a little laryngitis, so bear with me. My name is Kathy Holt. I'm here to speak about transparency and truthfulness I've lived in this district for 17 years. I'm a high school senior, and up until this year, I, like many others, have remained quiet, watching as things play out in our district. I never said too much, trusting those that we elected. I know that for me and other taxpayers in the district, we regret that we, the majority, have sat back and allowed decisions to be made on our behalf while not paying enough attention. As I have relayed to all of you in emails I sent to each board member individually early on in the school year, I, for one, will no longer remain silent and asleep as to what is going on. I attended both the August 10th and 25th school board meetings. In those meetings, there was a policy change with the wording that allowed Superintendent Magyar to be the one to make the mask mandate changes, as she is the one on the ground. And she has firsthand knowledge and data in hand. She can make a quick decision if she had to without having to have the board meet. It could be difficult, it was explained, to have the board convene giving public 24 hours notice that is required, if the board may have to vote to make any resolution. I came away from that meeting happy with that change, since I trusted Superintendent Magyar not to make an emotional decision, but one based on facts in hand. Some of the board members have made it known what their individual beliefs are regarding mask mandates, and we as taxpayers want our voices to be heard in a logical way, not with rash decisions. In a September 14th email, which we do have as its public record, School Board President Fred Peterson emailed the board members that, and I quote, "Majority of the board was now in favor of a mask mandate for the middle school effective ASAP," end quote. Wait, I thought there had to be a public meeting or 24-hour notice before the board met to discuss any changes to policy. On September 15th, Fred Peterson, Ellen Kramer, and Britt Wigman had a messaging discussion, which we have copies of, that quotes per friend, "Kathleen Mack is upset that a majority of the board opted for a mandate for the middle school against Joel's management of the pandemic. Secondly, she is right, as is anyone who knows the majority of this board violated sunshine laws by basically requiring her to put the mandate into effect immediately without a meeting that had 24 hours notice to the public. I fully intend to take responsibility for that at our next school board meeting. It is true that sunshine laws were violated, and I would do it again if I believed it was in the best interest of our students," end quote. Mr. Peterson also goes on to state, quote, "I told Joelle that a majority of the board wanted an indefinite mask mandate for the middle school, and to prevent being accused of insubordination, she implemented it," end quote. Why are 3 board members okay with a clear violation of legislation? You are elected school board officials. I'm disgusted, as are many other taxpayers and parents in this district. So we clearly and knowingly violate laws, but feel it's okay because you will just apologize later and make it all better. What are you teaching children if you say it's okay to violate a law? What are you saying to us about how you operate when you say so that she isn't accused of being insubordinate? She implemented it. Sounds like blackmail to me. Clearly, you were having discussions behind closed doors without 24-hour public notice. Seems to many of us that Superintendent Magyar was the one that was going to have to take the fall for this change in mask mandate, when in reality, it was you breaking sunshine laws and pushing this to make changes behind closed doors. It saddens me that this is happening in our school district. I'm glad I'm standing up and speaking out, as are many other parents across this country at many other school board meetings. I think fellow taxpayers need to know the truth. Right now, this may be about mask mandates and policies, and some parents, I'm sure, are happy about the mask mandate. But I encourage those parents to wake up and see the bigger picture. If an elected school board can encourage those if an elected school board officials can make changes such as these behind closed doors, not on public record, but 24 hours notice, what other changes are they making that we aren't aware of? Please see the big picture. These are your children, this is their future, and these are our hard-earned tax dollars. I'm concerned that this is happening, and even more concerned that two of these school board members are up for re-election in November, and a total of 3 people are running for 2 seats with 2 incumbents. I ask parents and taxpayers, what shall we do about this? Because I don't know that I want someone representing my decisions who blatantly admits in writing that they broke a law. As Fred Peterson said, "I'm okay with breaking the sunshine laws. I would do it again." That is appalling. I recommend the resignations of Peterson, Kramer, and Wigman for knowingly violating state legislation. Thank you.
Next is Joan. Joan Hagan.
Good evening, board members and school officials. Thank you, Superintendent Magnow, for responding to my questions from the last board meeting. During the board meetings, there is only time for the public to ask questions and no conversation. Would someone respond to me when the public can engage in conversations about school issues? Thank you.
Thank you.
Rick Pogue.
Good evening to everybody. I'm Rick Pogue. I live on Westwood Road in Rexville. Never been to a meeting like this of any sort. This is my first time. And I just have to say to the board here, to our public, that we've had 15 years of experience dealing with your schools. We've had raised kids that went through the BBH school system. Great job. Thank you. Did a real fine job. What brings me to here today is we hear a lot about CRT that's going on, and that's a big news and some news, I guess you could say. So I have questions regarding that, of how much CRT is being implemented on our students from K to 12th grade. Is there any? Is there a lot? Is there none? That's a question that needs to be asked. Also, as Joan Hagan just said a little bit ago, is there any room for discussing anything that's brought up at these meetings at a later time? That's all I have for you today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roger Bundy.
Good evening. My name is Roger Bundy. I live at 8219 Bright Road. Reasonable people can disagree about masks. No one can disagree about following the law. I'm a licensed practicing attorney in the state of Ohio. And while I appreciate the mea culpa, the fact is, I don't know how sincere it is. Training for 3 board members, one of whom is also a licensed attorney in Ohio, who should know better and is held to the standard of knowing what the law is. There really isn't a good excuse for what happened, and I think that will be resolved politically. I just have a rhetorical question as you go into your debate about mask policy, really for you to ask yourselves. Isn't the fact that the so-called public health politicians you're taking guidance from, not orders, they're not allowed to issue public orders anymore, just guidance, keep moving the goalpost on you? 0 to 3 feet, mask or no mask, you still have to be, oh, we can't say quarantine, the school boards aren't allowed to quarantine, excluded. Isn't that an admission about the lack of efficacy of masks? Please ask yourself that question as you engage in that debate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Todd Stanley.
Evening, my name is Todd Stanley. I live on Glenwood Trail. The gentleman in the front row addressed the same issue that I was going to raise. Specifically to Mr. Peterson, I'd like to know where you stand on CRT, critical race theory. In light of what we've learned about your Facebook postings, Black Lives Matter, I would really like you to clarify your position. And I would, join with these people. The Sunshine Law was broken, and there's no excuse for that. But you don't have to answer tonight, do you?
Thank you.
Gina and Tracy.
Hi, I'm Gina and Tracy. I'm just here to talk about transparency. Regardless of what side of an issue you're on, everybody in this room should care about what happened here with these 3 board members. You cannot just go rogue. There's a process in place for a reason. And that was broken, that trust was broken. This isn't the first time the trust has been broken. Joelle is leading this district and you are tying her hands over and over again. And I do not appreciate it. My children are suffering because of it. I watched her last year, and I'm gonna get emotional, say we need to bring these kids back to school 5 days a week. The data is showing they are suffering, and you guys stop that. And my daughter is now in 2nd grade, and she still cannot read because you refuse to listen to this woman who is the expert. Okay? She's the expert. She's the one with the education. All right? You guys are not experts in education or policy. Why will you not let her do her job? She can bring this district even further than it already is, but you continue to tie her hands, put up roadblocks, hide, make everything look like it's her. It is cowardly and it is wrong. And that is all I have to say tonight.
Bill Alessandro.
Bill Alessandro, I live in Glenwood Trail, and my question is about the buses. Why are we getting all the traffic of the buses down Glenwood Trail when we're not supposed to get any? We're talking about 10 to 15 buses at a time, up and down, up and down. Since Route 82 has been finished, we use our street to cut through. Now, we can't even get in and out of our own driveways in the morning, in the afternoon. It's a constant. And we're having, with the city, we got trucks going up and down, semis. That street should be a highway. Should be called Glenwood Highway. Every bus goes up and down that street. Now, we'd like to have somebody address the bus garage and find out why they're sending all the buses. And believe me when I tell you, they don't go 25 miles an hour. I drove a bus for many years. I know what's going on. I'd like somebody to address the bus garage and find out why they are sending buses up and down our road. They can go to Broadview, to 82 and down, it's just as short. Matter of fact, it's wider and less traffic. So I would like somebody to relay that message to them, please. And he has my address and phone number and everything. I'll be glad to talk to him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Teresa Fisher.
Hello, my name is Terry Fisher. I live off of Hollythorn Drive. I'm here to really echo everything that a lot of these parents have already stated regarding the mask requirements, but Kathy, specifically you, I'd like to address because I've been watching your emotional reactions to what's been stated, and I'm ashamed at the fact that you're a board member. You're the one.
Really? It's not appalling that somebody broke the law on you? You don't think that's appalling? You wouldn't be emotional sitting up here?
Wait, we're good. I mean, these are the people that we're trusting to make the decisions for our children. While mask discussions were being held up here, I watched you slam your face into your hands, not make eye contact. It's embarrassing that this type of emotional behavior is behind the policies that are being put into place for our children.
Thank you.
Killian Fisher.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Killian Fisher. I just want to give you first a little bit of background on me. I'm a doctor of medical physics, a bachelor of science in nuclear engineering technologies, a master's in radiation health physics, and I'm a certified health physicist. My biggest question, I guess, being that we have 2 kids currently in one of your elementary schools, is why have we chosen to go with mask mandates over improving ventilation? Mr. Peterson, I know you worked in the rubber industry. I'm sure you have plenty of experience with safety, so you must know about the hierarchy of controls, one of which being engineering controls. The reason why we choose that over PPE is because PPE requires a lot of training. Obviously, our kids are not well equipped to be wearing masks. There's plenty of studies, a lot of conflicting evidence on mask mandates, whether they work, whether they don't work. I'm not necessarily arguing. I would like to take away the mask mandate, but more specifically, I'd like to improve ventilation in the elementary schools, because clearly it's not good enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Nelson.
My name is Kristen Nelson. I live at 4057 Lake Park Drive. I wasn't saying anything tonight because I let my sister handle everything, but I really am appalled at what's been going on. And Kathy Mack, you have been amazing. And truly appreciate you on this board. And I understand why you're emotional, because I've been emotional too, and I've remained silent, and I'm kind of fed up as to what's going on. And I wish you would listen to the parents. The majority of what we want, choice. That's all we want is a choice. And I applaud you, Kathy, and I am so glad you're on the school board. Thank you.
Item number 7.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Magyar responded to the critical race theory questions that you guys have raised at several board meetings earlier this year. Her response was fairly succinct. I don't know if you want to respond again.
I want to hear Mr. Peterson speak about to it. I want to hear Mr. Peterson's opinion. It matters before we vote.
Well, and I was also going to say, I'm happy to speak with anyone after the end of the meeting if you'd like to talk with me, okay? That's all.
Okay. Item 7, other board business. Amended board policy, final reading. Does anybody on the board have any questions?
What is this policy? Let's make sure we're clear.
Yeah, I need a motion, please. Second. Okay, our policy is 8451 is a policy regarding protective facial coverings during epidemic events.
This is the policy that was passed at the last board meeting with the red lines, and this is the final version of it.
That's correct. Any questions or comments?
So this is the same policy we had at the last board meeting.
That's correct.
Second reading.
This is the final reading.
Okay, so there's no changes to this policy.
No changes.
Exact same one.
It's the exact same one.
Okay, thank you for clarity.
You're welcome. Any other comments? Roll call.
Mr. Dosen,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yeah.
Mrs. Mack,
Yes.
Mrs. Wigman,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes. Okay. Item 7C, resolution to affirm and authorize existing safety measures at the middle school to mitigate against continued spread of COVID-19. Let me read that resolution. I'm sorry, I need a motion, please. Second. Whereas on August 24th, 2021, the board approved resolution to authorize the superintendent, as well as the board, to make timely decisions to implement amended board policy 8450.01 regarding protective facial coverings for some or all district students, and to continue to have authority to do so for staff, volunteers, and/or visitors, should it be needed at any time during this 2021-2022 school year, including the ability to require facial mask coverings on a district-wide, building-wide, grade level, classroom, or other basis, to allow a timely and/or universal or targeted response within the district when circumstances so require. And whereas on or before September 14th, 2021, the superintendent informed the school community that a mask requirement for the middle school is effective September 15th, 2021, reflecting a desire to keep students learning in person while adding another layer of protection to mitigate against the spread of COVID-19 in the middle school. And whereas the board has discussed in public session at this regular meeting the consideration of requiring masks, facial coverings at the middle school, and whereas the board seeks to express its support for the superintendent's September 14th, 2021 mask requirement for the middle school, and further seeks to independently authorize and require that teachers, staff, students, visitors, and volunteers at the middle school wear a face mask in accordance with board policy, effective September 14th, 2021 through today. Now therefore be it resolved that the Brecksville Broadview Heights City School District retroactively affirms and supports the superintendent's September 14th, 2021 decision to increase its safety measures at the middle school to further mitigate against the continued spread of COVID-19 and its variants, and affirms and supports the superintendent's decision to require masks at the middle school retroactive to September 15th, 2021 for all teachers, staff, students, visitors, and volunteers consistent with the board's facial coverings policy and pursuant to section 3313.67 of the Ohio Revised Code. Be it further resolved that Brecksville Broadview Heights City School District authorizes and issues its own decision to increase its safety measures at the middle school to further mitigate against the continued spread of COVID-19 and its variants, and further authorizes and issues a decision to require masks at the middle school retroactive to September 15, 2021 through September 29, 2021 for all teachers, staff, students, visitors, and volunteers consistent with the board's facial coverings policy and pursuant to section 3313.67 of the Ohio Revised Code. Be it further resolved that it is hereby found and determined by the board that this resolution is necessary due to the emergency conditions caused by COVID-19 in order to protect the safety or welfare of the students or employees of the district and/or in order to maintain in-person instruction and prevent closure of schools. Be it further resolved that it is hereby found and determined that all formal actions of this board concerning and relating to the adoption of this resolution were adopted in an open meeting of this board in compliance with all legal requirements, section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Dosa,
So this is cleanup for the improper decision that was made, and so I cannot support this, no.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yeah.
Mrs. Mack,
Yeah, and I'll echo what Mr. Dosen said. This is cleanup. And no,
Mrs. Wigman,
this policy rights is wrong at this time. Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes. Okay. Resolution is out. Okay. Item E, resolution to authorize safety measures at the middle school to mitigate against the continued spread of COVID-19 effective September 30, 2021.
That's for a motion.
May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Discussion? I more than happy to read the resolution.
So we're making a correlation that masks are what is helping the non-spread of COVID-19. So that, at least for me, that's the assumption that's being made. I don't feel comfortable making that assumption. Anything else?
Other than to say, I don't
our district families and our district community members continue to make choices, they are inadvertently making choices for other families that impact perfectly healthy children. I know Mr. Dosen at the August meeting was exceedingly concerned around quarantine policies, now exclusion policies for our students. I can attest that a perfectly healthy student was sent home for 1 week of his education due to a close contact. Being flagged as a close contact. It's rather unfortunate that we're at this juncture. But I think in order to continue ensuring that our families remain in school to continue their educations, I think it's necessary.
Just to make sure everybody understands, this is a resolution that authorizes and issues a decision to require masks at middle school effective September 30, 2021, and going forward until further notice. For all teachers, staff, students, visitors, and volunteers consistent with the board's facial coverings policy and pursuant to section 3313.67 of the Ohio Revised Code. It's the same resolution that we just passed, except that it's a resolution going forward until further notice. Additional discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Dosen?
So the last resolution was the cleanup of the look back from the actions. This is the resolution that properly says, does this board want to usurp our superintendent, override her, and put in place a mask mandate at the middle school indefinitely? And I suspect that you are going to see, quite ironically, that 3 board members who had enough faith in our superintendent to extend her contract will now show a lack of faith and override her. I, for one, have faith in our superintendent to make the right decision, so I vote no.
Mrs. Kramer?
Yeah.
Mrs. Mack?
I'm going to echo what Mr. Dosen said. Mrs. Magyar has more information than me. She knows what's going on in our building. And I find it ironic as well that the 3 board members who said that they were behind our superintendent conveniently, when it doesn't serve them, are not behind her. So I respectfully, I'm going to vote no, because I trust our superintendent's judgment on this.
Mrs. Wigman?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes. Resolution passes. Item 8, board member committee reports. Financial liaison audit committee,
No updates.
permanent improvement committee,
We have a meeting coming up on October 20th, and we have a contract to approve later on in the meeting that has to do with improvements. And I think there's also something else on here about the upgrades.
board policy committee. I can report the board policy committee will be meeting, I believe it's October 25th. Sustainability committee,
No update.
item 9, district committee reports. Transportation appeals committee, Mark.
No appeals at this time.
The Valley Career Center report. Mr. Gilbert.
Good evening, all. Several things to update the board on regarding the Gallagher Valley Career Center. Number one, if you're not aware, this is the celebration of our 50th year. So there's quite a bit of activity in the building. I encourage everyone to take a walk through. There's a beautiful mural going through some of the history of the building and the service to the community. Building updates, as many of you are aware, we've done quite a bit of refurbishment and maintenance. The roof at level 2 is completed. The glass work at the top of the building, which was creating problems with water, has been resolved. All of that is on schedule, under budget, and has not interrupted any of the school activities. School enrollment, just saw the reports earlier today. Year-over-year retention for the Career Center is at 85%. For the Brecksville district, we are at 73%, which is the first time in the last 5 years we've been below the school average. That being said, I was very pleasantly surprised to see we have an 82% increase in enrollment for first-year students. We are now at 20% of our junior class, I believe, that is enrolled at Cuyahoga Valley Career Center this year. Largest number I've seen in my tenure there. So very encouraged by that. Adult education, the nursing program enrollment is still on a decline at the moment. Some of that can be attributed to COVID experience that we're all having great entertainment with. Financial impact will be lessened immensely due to a lot of the relief and funds that are available through COVID, through government. Lastly, COVID impact over at the Career Center. 1 student and 1 adult student per week is all we have seen. It's probably worth noting that the Career Center has been in person through the entire pandemic, continues to be in person with little, if any, issues. Sadly, would also like to report that Chris Kitson, as some of you know, longtime board member, had to resign recently. And last October 28th is the all board dinner. So I would encourage all of you to attend if you're able to. I'll circulate some of this information with an email and would ask if there's any questions.
Jim, how was CBCC handling masks?
You know, Mark, I wish I could tell you for sure off the top of my head. I don't know, so I'm not going to get into all of that for it. But I will report back and let the board know.
That's good though that the COVID numbers have been low so far.
They checked. Superintendent Magnus has done a terrific job. Like I said, they have been, granted, a much different situation. The kids are further apart. They're using, it's a totally different environment. So I recognize that. But we have been in session. It's important for those kids to get their hands on things. They learn differently than a lot of other kids. So it's really been a terrific survival.
I'm really thrilled with that 82% enrollment increase.
I was shocked, quite frankly.
Are you able to shed light on what programs are specifically about enrollment?
I have all of that information. I'll be happy to share it. I mean, I can run down the list. It was pretty much across the board with that kind of.
Please do.
No, I'll send all that.
Every October you send that to us, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
It just came out this week.
Right. I want to tell you the feedback that I've gotten from the public. So thankful last year, the way CBCC handled COVID. Some of those parents said it was the saving grace that kept their kids going, at least in this district. So the fact that they still continued the hands-on, very, I mean, Dave did an amazing job over there, and I can tell you that our parents have noticed it. And maybe that uptick is because of the way that CBCC did react to COVID, because they stepped up.
Hard to tell, but appreciate it. It's nice to hear. Yes, you did a terrific job. So, thank you all.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you so much.
There's no mask mandate at CBCC. You're welcome.
Safety and security.
Our next meeting is this Friday. This Friday, October 1st.
School foundation report, Brittany.
I have a couple of updates to share. The first is grants have been awarded for our teachers. Every year, the school foundation issues a set of grants following an application process that was opened in the spring this year. We have awarded, the school foundation has awarded 9 grants supporting 15 different teachers to a total of with a total of $31,849. Supporting those goals, of which $11,409 were specifically targeted towards special needs grants for the district. So very excited to see the Schools Foundation continue to support the district and some of our outstanding teachers and their ongoing initiatives to improve our students' learning environments. Secondly, I'd like to share that there are two candidates for trustee that have been nominated. The first is Kelly Emrich. She's a several-year veteran of the district as a resident and currently serves as the marketing coordinator for England Consulting. So she'll be joining the foundation to support their ongoing efforts to improve community engagement with the community. And then secondly, Christina Yazzie will be joining as well. Again, another 16-year veteran of the community, heavily involved in the school district through PSO and community engagement and the Travel Baseball Association for Brexville, and is currently serving as a research and regulatory affairs specialist at Dartmouth Hitchcock Health. So both of those, and she'll be supporting the foundation in a multitude of capacities, one of which is really sort of just an all hands on deck, jack of all trades, I suppose. So very excited for the foundation to continue growing their membership, and again, kudos to the foundation for the grants that they have done awarded to our teachers.
PSO report, I can report that all PSOs across the district are in the middle of their membership drive. If anybody here or anybody listening is a student in the district, I would encourage you to join your programs PSO. They do a fantastic job for our district. Other board member reports?
You know, I'm just gonna take this opportunity just real quick. So this gentleman looks like he may want to address the board, but the window closed, so procedurally, when we have hearing in the public, we gotta get in on that one. So, and for other people who come to the board meetings and are asking questions and are looking for a dialogue, you know, unfortunately, these public board meetings are not really a forum for the board as a group to have a dialogue with the community. You're welcome to reach out to us individually. You're welcome to reach out to Joelle and our staff individually, but we don't have a regular forum where we come and say, as a group, we'll entertain questions to the public. So for those who are showing up at the board meetings and using hearing the public to ask questions, that's not really the best forum to actually get answers. It's better to actually contact us individually. You can also send an email to the whole board. You know, there's the contact the board on our webpage. That email goes to all of us. Usually the board president responds on our behalf. But so that's just FYI. If you're coming to the board meeting, you're looking for answers. This isn't that hearing of the public is to let the public be heard, but not necessarily kind of dialogues. Just FYI.
Mr. Wilson, is there a way to change that? I would have to change because obviously we've emailed board members. Maybe I get an answer from 2 people and I get no response.
Yeah, you know, we have had what we would call town hall meetings on certain topics in the past, you know, so like when we were going around buildings and trying to decide, are we going to replace our buildings? What's the new building going to look like? That type of thing. We've had various topics when we made the decision to close Central School. We had a town hall meeting, more dialogue in there. So short of there being a designated topic where the board feels that there's value in hosting some type of a town hall, which is a little bit different style of meeting, these regular monthly board meetings are really to conduct board business with an agenda item to hear the public. So unfortunately, there isn't a way to do that other than like if there was a specific topic, right? And we did have a hearing of the public on mask mandates, you know, that we had quite a bit of hearing to do. But so anyway, no, there's not a specific forum that says we're going to bring all 5 of us together in an official board meeting and have a dialogue with the community, short of us setting something like that up in a defined topic.
May I make a suggestion? Say this, we got to say our comments before the this resolution that we totally disagree with passed, but we don't get to say any kind of comments, so that's kind of upsetting to us. Very upsetting.
I understand. But again, our contact information is out there, so you can call board members, you can email board members, you can stop us on the street. You know, and that's what I do with our staff. So again, you know, just food for thought, you know, and especially for those who are coming to board meetings, looking for an answer. This isn't really the best place to try to get an answer. It's a place to be heard, but you want to come directly to us or to our staff and work through those channels to get actual answers to questions.
Oh, yeah, the thing is though, Mark, maybe, I mean, I hear what you're saying. The town hall meeting did work out well. So maybe the concept is that 2 times a year, the board has a town hall meeting. We hear critical race theory. You want to hear what the board is saying on that and what's coming down from the state. Maybe it's possible. I mean, we're going to have an election where things are going to change. And so maybe the dynamic will be that the majority would want that would want a town hall coffee. So, I mean, I'm open to that idea. I feel like Mr. Dozen possibly would be open to that idea, you know, and we'll see if the majority of a board would be open to that idea where we do something like that and you have an opportunity to put those topics on. It's not a bad idea.
No, I think that's a good idea.
Is there somewhere we can go look at like the standard operating procedures or the chain of command of like how this board operates? In other words, like how it was allowed where like 3 members were allowed to like override the entire board? Is there somewhere we can look to see like how this all happens? I mean, how these the rules of the board are?
Yeah, the general answer is policy. We have policies. So we have policies and then there's state laws. There's various laws we are covered by. So there's, when you hear about sunshine laws, that's Ohio revised code, right? That governs how public bodies, us being one of them, have to conduct business. So public records requests, sunshine laws, all that thing is state law, right? And then we have our own internal policies. So what we read today referenced policies. So some of those were state, some of those were Ohio revised code laws, and some of them were our own policies that we adopt. So, you know, we have an entire policy database that covers all of our policies. Policies cover everything, including how the board operates.
And that's available on our website.
So we have board members who don't have to follow the law and can break Ohio revised code, but as parents, you're asking us to now obey your resolution.
Well, again, so yeah, we're starting to get into a dialogue here where I was just saying, we can't get into dialogue. But just know, right, you know, the violations, any
Do as
violations.
I say, not as I do, and I'm sorry, Mr. Joseph, I'm just really, as you understand,
Emotional.
I'm very emotional.
No, we're just playing
And
politics
I'm very
with our
upset
children.
that 3 people think they are above the law. My tax dollars fund this district.
And if we say we're sorry, that makes it better. It doesn't make it better. It's illegal.
But you're not mad about the transparency, but you're mad because the decision didn't work out right.
You don't know what we're mad about. You can't read my mind.
Well, forget it.
You know what?
You know what, I'm sorry.
You know what, it's okay, let's remain, sorry, let's remain respectful. Listen, listen, we just need to, sorry.
Item 10, treasurer's announcements.
So I will talk about a positive subject, which is the fact that we are planning to hopefully pass the contract for adding additional ADA compliant parking and walkways at our baseball and softball field. Just to we basically went out to bid. It didn't work out the way we wanted it to. We checked with our legal counsel. We were able to put it back out basically in an RFP process, which resulted in about a $15,000 savings under the original bids. So therefore, we're recommending that project go forth as soon as possible. Just so everyone is clear, we are going to try our very best to get that done before the winter. We do not have any guarantees at this point, though, due to weather, asphalt, those types of things that may get in the way. With having that conversation with legal and trying to use the same approach, we will be going out for an RFP for the replacement of the track surface and also the tennis courts. The tennis courts are taking a little bit extra time right now because as we're addressing ADA parking with our baseball and softball field, we do not have ADA accessible parking at our tennis courts. So we've asked TDA to make sure that that is a part of the final RFP that will go out, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do all of that work and then have a tennis court that is not, tennis courts that are not ADA compliant. So we're gonna make sure that there's ADA parking and seating available at the tennis courts as well. So that is gonna take a little bit of extra time on TDA's part to add that in, because that was not part of the original discussion. So those projects are planning to go off in this RFP process over the winter, and then we will be providing contracts, hopefully for resolution sometime maybe after January, February, to get that work started as soon as possible in the spring and summer. Unfortunately, the tennis courts would not be available for the spring season, but it would probably go track first and then tennis courts as it stands right now. So those will be on the docket. And then lastly, which is not on there, is just because we have the audit committee talks, the gap conversion audit is going on right now, and the financial audit is beginning as we speak.
Mr. Yanma, what's there's also something related to the roof thing, and how does that play into what's already been done?
Correct. So high school roof replacement, that would just be a continuation of fixing the roofs in the district that are leaking. The high school has an area that is problematic. I believe it's for the gyms area. And so we want to get that on the docket next in terms of, and that would be that like the PI funds would be paying for that as well as the other projects too. And some of the extra that we will hopefully have at the end of the building project. So that is up for going out for bid. That is a improvement to a building. And so that is required to be a competitive bid process versus an RFP.
Thank you. Item 11, superintendent's other business. Item A, high school roof replacement. Item B, contract the parking walkways. Item C, approval of superintendent's other business. May I have a motion?
So
Second.
I'd like to thank Mr. Gallagher for explaining all of those items for me. So thank you, sir.
Roll call.
Mr. Dosen?
yes.
Mrs. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack? Mrs. Wigman?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes. Item 12, superintendent's consent agenda. Certified recommendations, classified recommendations, supplemental recommendations, approval of superintendent's consent agenda. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions about any of the recommendations?
Thank you to those and best wishes to those who have them.
These are all just standard cycle hires, is that correct?
Correct, and some contract revisions as we get into the school year and have needs in other areas. We've done several contract revisions as well.
Saul Wood was a substitute bus driver. Way to go.
We are very excited about that. And if any of you have any desire to ride a bus, we are definitely hiring and need drivers.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Dosen?
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes.
Mrs. Wigman?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes. Item 13, treasurer's consent agenda. Item A, financial report. Item B, tuition paying non-resident student. Item C, donations. Item D, minutes. Item E, approval of the treasurer's consent agenda. And I have a motion.
So moved.
Sorry. So for the month, this is for the September report for the month of August that we're looking at. It looks like we're running a very tight ship in terms of how we are to our forecast. I'm in the process right now of getting the new forecast basically updated for what will be under the new contracts as we work through those pieces. We can get some really great data now out of payroll now that we're actually paying on those contracts. So we'll be working on that over the next month or so. The intended passage of the new 5-year forecast will be at the November meeting, just for reference, since that did change past couple years ago. So overall, it looks like it's a deficit for the year of 191,000. It still puts us in a great cash position. Right now, the forecast that we're operating under has us at about a negative 220,000, I believe. So we're actually holding steady really nicely. As we look at local taxes in terms of revenue, this is a comparison to the prior year. The tax revenue is up by 6,730,000, but that is just in terms of timing. So it's not that the school district just magically received an extra $6 million. It's just the timing of how it compared to last year. So it seems like the tax revenues are coming back in terms of the right timing, because some of that timing was affected last year during COVID, as there were some extensions for property tax owners to make their payments. State revenue is kind of equalized a little bit. Again, just a reminder, the Fair School Funding Plan will take effect in October. It's like in effect, but they're not going to start actually fixing our payments the way that they should be until October. We get those payments twice a month. And then just as a reminder, you're going to see some of those forecast changes, which I'll walk you through next month, that our purchase services are going to dramatically go down, as well as our revenues, but our revenues will still be slightly above. And that's just because of how that funding model is making direct payments to other entities like community schools. So just a reminder. This chart here actually shows our actual revenue compared to the prior year. Again, this is a timing issue for local taxes, because overall, like I said earlier, we're trending well. Sorry, go to the expenditure side. As we look at the expenditures, as we compare to last year, we are a little bit above, but overall salaries are actually below at $28,000, which is good compared to last year. Purchase services are $55,000 less. And again, that's kind of that recalibration from last year that we saved a lot of money in purchase services. Always looked at contracts and changes in pupil services. All of our other expenditures were up by $230,000 with the total increase of $147,000. Also, some of the stuff that we'll be talking about is kind of skewed for how we get refunds and whatnot, and that kind of goes into those all other expenditures, just as a side note. All expenses incurred through August compared to last year. Again, we're holding steady. Typically, a school district is going to spend more money from year to year because of salaries and benefits, which account for about 85% of our budget. But you can see here that salaries and benefits are up $383,000 overall, and then our purchase services are down $195,000. So again, that puts us right there where we are favorable to the forecast as of now. And again, this number changes as we kind of work through some of these changes and get towards the next forecast. Are there any other questions?
I have two. And just what do you attribute the $230,000 increase in expenditures to?
So one of the things that we have to look at is that, so last year we actually did, it's almost back to normal for us, but we had a lot of expenditures that we didn't have in a year of COVID. So it's kind of almost bringing some of those things back to normal is what ends up happening. There was a lot of things we looked at last year, and it was difficult to get staff because, you know, every year staff order certain materials and supplies and whatnot. And when we were in COVID last year, that spending kind of changed a lot because we were hybrid, we were remote, we were back in school. And this year we're kind of normalizing ourselves back to some of those other categories, which are attributed to most of the increase right now.
Okay, and then one additional question is the Fair School Funding Plan and the fact that it's only funded for 2 years, like how is that affecting your ability to put together the 5-year forecast?
So that's a great question. We talked about this in our, it's like they always dangle these carrots sometimes in front of us and ask us to work miracles in terms of projecting things, which is difficult. So it's kind of what they did with student wellness and success. If you remember, the governor put the student wellness and success funds into the budget, and they said, okay, we're going to fund it for 2 years, and you're going to get all this money. But then treasurers, they kind of panic, and they're like, but you're going to take that money away. So we had to get some assurances before we could build that stuff into the actual forecast, which we eventually did get. This is very similar. The legislature only agreed to or passed the law to fund it for 2 years at a phased-in rate. It was originally phased in for a course of 6 years. I think that there's just still some skepticism whether the state can afford it. So the discussion among treasurers is, how do we plan to move forward? Do we phase it in for the 2 years and just hold steady? Or do we get aggressive and phase it in for the 6 years or the 5 years of forecast, right? That's not the role I would operate under because nothing's really guaranteed. So I've also heard some treasurers that are kind of going from that 16%, which is this year, and then it goes to 33%, and then kind of holding around 50%, hoping that they'll get the 3rd year and then holding steady. So I'll kind of update that with what we decide in terms of those assumptions when we get there, but I would not probably at this point, definitely not go above 50% funding level at this point until we get more information that it would possibly be extended.
Can you tell us the order of magnitude of dollars that we're talking about?
So in general, right now, it's not a ton of money for Brexville Broadview Heights. There's some manipulation of, they took away the student wellness and success funds, and then they're giving it to us in this first year back. So it looks like on paper, we're getting about $400 and some thousand, but in reality, it's closer to 200,000. But then the following year, it's an additional $200,000, which again, to the public, that sounds like a lot of money. But our budget is quite large, and so as a percentage of our budget, it's very, very low. But it's still a good move in the right direction for public funding of schools.
Thank you.
So many in our community are receiving letters from Cuyahoga County Revision Board with reappraisals. I suspect most people are seeing a large increase in the appraised values of houses. Because of House Bill 920, most of that does not generate significant tax dollars, but there is some inside knowledge that does get affected by that. And we have a sense of what the reappraisal is going to mean for a district. Realizing it may be a couple $100,000, which,
right,
you know, but it's still significant money. A couple hundred here, a couple hundred there, pretty soon it's real money, right?
Correct. So I don't have that number off the top of my head, but yes, you're correct. They've already improved the model that we use to forecast the taxes. So there is an increase in that valuation. At the time when we first looked at it, we increased our estimate by about 10% for this district because we didn't have that actual data. I guess the good news is I just heard on the news today that that first ring outside of Cleveland is really feeling the major pain. They're at 20 to 25% is what their increases were. That are those cities that are directly touching the city of Cleveland. Brexville and Broadview Heights was an average of 13 to 14%. So yes, those increases will go into effect for the 2022 tax or calendar years when those will be collected on. So it will be there, and I will talk about that when we do the forecast in terms of the actual number, but it will increase a little bit for our total budget.
So the rest of your agenda?
Are there any other questions on the tuition paying student or donations?
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Dosen?
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes.
Mrs. Wigman?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes. Closing items, announcements.
If you want to read when our next board meeting is.
The next board meeting is it's October 28th.
27.
I'm sorry, October 27th. That's our next regular board meeting. Any other comments?
No, I'm thankful that the public stays engaged and very thankful for you. So thank you for staying away.
Roll call.
Need a motion.
I'm sorry, I need a motion to adjourn. Roll call.
Mr. Dosen?
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes.
Mrs. Wigman?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.